Welcome, Northeast Conference fans, to our latest NEC Now podcast on the NEC Overtime Pod. Today, I am joined by Wagner's Allison Meehan, who is on the women's triathlon team, and Mount St. Mary's men's lacrosse player, Connor McMahon. Thank you both so much for being here. Both student athletes are a part of the Northeast Conference Stack. As a part of the Northeast Conference's educational initiative, NEC Votes, we will be discussing the importance of your vote and voting rights. First, I would like to discuss your paths to your respective schools. Allie, you're from Pennsylvania, and Connor, you're from New Jersey. So, Allie, what made you choose Wagner to continue your academic and athletic career?
Yeah, so I chose Wagner for a few different reasons, partly because of location. I really like New York City. And triathlon right now is an emerging NCAA sport. So at the time that I was looking at colleges, I think only about 30 schools had sport as an NCAA sport. So it left me with a few choices, and I liked Wagner overall with academics and everything. So
great, that's awesome. And Connor, what about you?
Yeah, hailing from New Jersey, I obviously had the dream of playing lacrosse at the highest possible level, and Mount St. Mary's was a great fit for me, lacrosse-wise, academically, and then financially. I know that Mount St. Mary's does its best with the financial aid packages and an opportunity to compete at a great level while serving the small-size classrooms, which is something I needed to be as successful as I am today.
That's great. And the two of you are co-chairs of NEC Stack, is that correct?
Yep.
Awesome. So why don't you share a little bit about how that has shaped your college experience so far and how that's made you the leaders that you are today?
Yeah, so it's really cool. I think we both got started in a Stack a little bit later. And then, at least for me, I heard about the opportunity to be a co-chair for Stack. And I just decided to apply because someone else at my school was the co-chair before. So I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to sort of continue that on. And yeah, it's awesome to have an impact on more than just my own school on the NEC, the conference level. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to be involved in SAC. I know being the president here at Mount St. Mary's, I was approached about the opportunity to be a co-chair, and I saw nothing but benefits that would come from this position because we can represent the NEC conference at the national level and then throughout all 10 institutions together.
That's great. And being as involved in the NEC and on your campuses make you the perfect leaders for an initiative like NEC Votes. Tomorrow, as you both know, is election day. So how have you encouraged your peers to get out and vote?
I think just talking about it and sort of discussing what it looks like to vote and how to vote, especially going to a school where a lot of people aren't from the area necessarily, some internationals, and they aren't able to vote, but still just talking about it, and people who are out of state figuring out how they're going to vote and everything. And now that the NCAA has passed the rule that no official practices on November 2nd, I think that's really important, and I think that's really going to help with the voter turnout, hopefully.
Yeah, Allie, I think you hit it perfectly. The communication line has been increasing over the years, and the more time I've been in college now, this is year 4. So I think that's our best bet with our teammates, our fellow athletes all over campuses, big or small. Voting is very important, and I think that if we can just continue to push the idea of you can actually change something with your vote, the numbers will definitely increase.
Right, and like Allie said, tomorrow is from the NCAA, there's no practices, there's no sports, so that way you can go out and vote. I mean, how do you think, Allie, you touched on it a little bit, but how do you think that will increase voter turnout in college athletes? I mean, with a busy practice schedule and just the day-to-day of class, this now gives you an opportunity to probably get out to a polling station or submit your ballot by mail.
For sure. I mean, if you look at student athletes' lives, just rushing between practice and class and all these other commitments, it just seems so rushed. So sort of eliminating that practice component of the day, I think, is really going to increase the time that student athletes have to vote. So I think that will really help.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect opportunity, and it's a perfect day because it gives us as student athletes the chance to take a step back and look at the big picture, because obviously we're invested in our teams, our athletics, our practices, but with nothing that day related to care hours, it's important to see the big picture and how much your vote and your time could be devoted to something beneficial.
And my next question for the two of you is, why is your vote important? This year isn't a presidential election year, which typically produces a lower voter turnout in general. So why is it important for you to get out and vote? Like, what say do you have, especially right now in an election where you're not voting for the president?
I can start us here. I know that those, we can say, like, I guess smaller, more local elections, they kind of affect us, at least I know in my eyes, more personally. So, my vote right now back in New Jersey is going to affect like my county, my town. So not that the presidential election isn't as important, but these votes could affect you drastically and directly. So putting your voice out there is going to help your cause and your ideas.
I agree. So for me, I go to school in New York, but I live in Pennsylvania. So I ballot back to Pennsylvania because it's a swing state often. So it could really go either way. So I just still feel like it's important to always submit my opinion because you never know. And honestly, it sounds sort of basic, but just getting in the routine of voting and always voicing your opinion because that's really important as well.
That's awesome. And like Connor had said, I mean, right now you're mostly voting for a municipal government, which is typically your city council, chief of police, mayor, judges, things like that. And a lot of people, especially college athletes, like and college students in general, just don't really think that those things are as important. I mean, when I first started voting, knowing to vote for school board, what am I going to be contributing by voting for school board? What you actually do is like give your county or your city or your town the opportunity to like lead in the direction that you hope for the rest of the government to lead in that state. So it is important. It's very important to get out. And like by voting, you have the opportunity to create the change in your local community that you would like to see. So my other question is just what does voting rights mean to the two of you? And like, why is it so important to push for voting rights, especially on either side of the house, especially right now?
For me, I find it empowering just being able to have the ability to voice my opinion. And no matter if it changes the vote or not, just knowing that I voice my opinion is really empowering.
Yeah, I think it's something we're granted with. So it's that special power to voice your opinion, and our voting system is not like any other. So being citizens, being just people in this country, we have the power to voice our opinions through obviously voting and so on. But I think it's really important to just remember that, and you have the ability to say what's on your mind without making like drastic change. Well, not without making like a big scene about it.
Right, exactly. And like voting rights in general just means like the entitlement of an individual to vote. And I think it's so important. Being a college athlete, like you had said before, Allie, like there are a lot of students that are international students that don't have the opportunity to vote, and they may not have the opportunity to vote in their home country as well. So having the right to vote in the United States is like an honor that you get to go out and like cast that vote, pick what you want, stand up for what you believe in, like you said. So how currently do you push your athletes, your student athletes, the people around you to go out and vote and like use that right to vote? I mean, you touched on it a little bit before, but really like, what is the conversation that you're having around voting rights? Like, do you hear from your other like peers that they don't have that right or that they feel like they don't know how to use it? Like, what's the conversation there?
So for me, a few different things that I've seen just on campus. I've seen in the study hall for athletes, they had a voter registration, which is great, a great place for student athletes to see it while they're studying, and it's mandatory in that area to be there, so they can see that. And then also just on campus, just for the general population, just signups for voting and just more information. So I think just creating that discussion and helping people who aren't so sure, because it's a little bit hard to sometimes figure out exactly where to vote and how to submit everything. So just having that support, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I think I would like to think that I do a great job spreading the word, but obviously we can always do more because the numbers are never where we want to see them. But sometimes it's hard, having those conversations about like politics, because you may be scrutinized for like talking about politics, because you're in college, you're not supposed to be worrying about politics. But I think we need to change that norm into focusing on our futures and what's going around us, whether that's at the municipal level or the government level. Having those tough conversations are definitely going to bring better results overall, whether that's your own city, your own university is affected, or then your city that you eventually live in after college.
Right, Connor, and you just mentioned like learning about voting and how like as a student athlete or as a college kid, you're told like, oh, you shouldn't be learning about politics, like it should be, but that is like what, I mean, we said before about voting for like the Board of Education, like I would have never thought to do that, but there are sometimes bills that are being passed at like a lower level where you could vote, like, will we be talking about the like future of the state instead of talking about the history of our government? Will we be talking about like what that looks like in our classrooms, or will it stay the same conversation of this is historically how it has gone and these are the current people running? I mean, oftentimes you are told like we don't talk about politics or religion in schools, which is important, but you get to then have a say on if those conversations should be brought up. And that is what tomorrow is all about, voting at that municipal level. In Pennsylvania right now, they're voting for like special state legislatives, state Supreme Court, things like that. I mean, local ballot measures, school boards, municipal government. So that's important. In New Jersey, you're voting for the governor, state executives, state senate, state house, school boards. I mean, the list goes on. You guys have the right to go out there and like cast your vote. And like, I'm so grateful that you now have the opportunity, thanks to having tomorrow off, to be able to go out and make sure your vote is cast and make sure you get your teammates, your friends, anyone out to the polls that you can. I mean, how do you guys feel knowing that you have that privilege?
I think it's something that I can never express how grateful we are as student athletes, and that the idea that the world is changing and having those conversations. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And as much as I would love to be on the lacrosse field or in the weight room getting ready for the season, I'm actually going to be doing something that is worth my time. I'm not just going to be chilling at home. So I'm just excited for the day. I'm happy that everyone can go out and vote, and it's something that we should all be looking forward to.
I agree with Connor, and I think it also just puts things into perspective. I think as student athletes, we're often so concentrated on our sport and school, and taking a day off and looking at something else, the election, which is a really big deal, is I think important for sure.
Well, great. I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation and be a part of the change that will be NEC votes and how we can go out and educate our fellow classmates. I mean, that is awesome. And like you guys just said, like that is a privilege that nonetheless you get to share. I mean, I think too, like you guys being a part of SAC, that has set you up to be the leaders in your community and like really shown you like, how do I connect with these people and get them out and get them involved in our community outside of just athletics. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me and making time on this Monday. I hope you guys get out and vote and take like 20 people with you. I know you're both casting your ballots by mail, but maybe you guys can all carpool or something and take them to the post office together, make it a fun little trip. But thank you for having this conversation with me.